In Miami, USA in 2024, quantum physicist Joya suddenly fell unconscious and was rushed to the hospital. What was even more baffling was that an X-ray examination revealed a black hole in Joya's chest cavity. The doctors were at a loss and believed she had at most 1 week left to live. They advised her family to take Joya home so they could accompany her through her final days. The next morning, Joya was woken up by her daughter, then wheeled out of the hospital by her daughter's boyfriend. After her husband brought her home, she went to the publishing house to meet with a lawyer, visited her mother at the nursing home, and chatted with an elderly woman. Yet through all of this, Joya simply smiled as if she were just an observer because she was hiding a secret she hadn't told anyone. With the help of a mysterious bottle of pills, Joya had already lived through this same week countless times. In the blink of an eye, it was the last day again. To make her happy, her family celebrated her 55th birthday in advance. Her husband got up to fetch a mysterious gift, but right on cue, Joya's nose began to bleed. She was no longer surprised by this. She went to the bathroom alone, took one of the pills, and when she opened her eyes again, she was back in the hospital room a week earlier. Although being trapped in a time loop seemed unbelievable, once Joya became intimately familiar with everything that was about to happen, all she felt was endless boredom. Finally, when she heard the old woman repeat the same words yet again, she couldn't hold back any longer and got up, wanting to escape this cursed scene. Unexpectedly, she bumped into a girl carrying a stack of books. Joya hurried to help her tidy them up, only to discover that among the books was one she and her husband had co-authored. This instantly made her realize that something was wrong. After experiencing the loop so many times, how had she never seen this girl before? So she asked where the girl had gotten the book. The girl didn't hide anything and led Joya to the study, introducing herself as Paula, a student of Professor Handel, currently researching the principles of time in the laboratory. These words immediately piqued Joya's interest. With technology advancing so rapidly nowadays, perhaps they could finally figure out what was really going on with the time loop. She might also take the opportunity to eliminate the black hole inside her. So, when the loop started again, Joya had her daughter and husband go sign the documents, while she took the chance to slip out of the hospital room and escape. After taking a taxi home to change clothes and grabbing the mysterious bottle of pills, she headed straight to Paula's house. But because time had reset, Paula didn't recognize Joya at all. Joya had no choice but to explain her situation and then described in detail the scene where the two of them were about to meet. But this explanation sounded too far-fetched, and Paula didn't believe it at all. She even put her hands behind her back and asked Joya to guess how many fingers she was holding up. With no other choice, Joya had to keep looping until she figured out all of Paula's actions and could accurately state them in front of her. At that point, no matter how shocked Paula was, she had no choice but to believe that Joya had really experienced a time loop. In order to analyze the ingredients of the pills, the two of them headed to the lab together. On the way, Paula, full of curiosity, asked Joya if she had ever taken several pills at once. She wondered if taking more pills at once would send her back to an even earlier point in time, but learned that Joya had already tried all of that, and unfortunately, it had no effect. She could only return to 1 week prior, and had to wait for the effects of the pill to wear off before taking another one, otherwise nothing would happen at all. This made Paula even more amazed. How could there be such a miraculous pill? The two of them made their way to the school laboratory. When Coden opened the door, Paula looked embarrassed, because all the equipment was covered with white sheets. It was obvious that this place had been abandoned for quite some time. It was clear that Paula hadn't told the truth, but Joya didn't seem to mind. She took out the pill bottle and began describing it to Paula. She had analyzed the ingredients of the pill and discovered that it was constantly regenerating at a subatomic level and was highly unstable. Conventional methods simply couldn't observe it. Hearing this, Paula suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Since conventional methods didn't work, why not try something unconventional? He asked Joya to wait in the lab for a moment while he went off, promising to be right back. But Joya felt that all of this was a bit too naive. After all, she had spent years researching this without any breakthrough, so could she pin her hopes on Paula, just a kid? It really was a case of grasping at straws in desperation. Joya gave up hope, picked up the pills and her data, and prepared to leave. However, just as she stepped out the door, she ran into an elderly man in a wheelchair. It was her former professor, Dua, whom she hadn't seen in 30 years. Seeing his long-lost student appear again, Dua was instantly excited and insisted on taking Joya to his office to catch up. He also mentioned that the only reason he could still work here at his age was thanks to a recommendation from Joya's ex-boyfriend, Mark. But when Dua opened the office door, he was surprised to find Paula sneaking around inside. The two locked eyes, both equally stunned. At first, Paula stammered, not knowing how to explain herself. Seeing this, Joya quickly said that Paula was with her, but this only made Dua more displeased. In fact, it sparked his anger. He turned to scold Joya, accusing her of being just as unruly as she was back then, smart but extremely lazy, wasting all the opportunities he had given her. These words cut deep, stabbing painfully at Joya's heart. Feeling utterly ashamed, Joya fled the office in embarrassment and explained the truth from back then to Paula. The reason she was able to get into a prestigious university was because she kept using the pills, memorizing all the answers. So, the laziness Dua spoke of was actually that Joya wasn't as smart as she had imagined. Seeing Joya so downcast, Paula didn't know how to comfort her, so she took out the box she had stolen from Dua's office and revealed a shocking secret to Joya. This box, which appeared to be empty, actually contained a human shrunk down to the size of a nanometer. Not long ago, Dua's team had successfully shrunk a person, but didn't know how to restore him, so they locked him in the box and left him to fend for himself. Paula placed a monitor on top of the box, using the transmitter on the nano-human suit. After successfully making contact with the person inside, Paula mentioned that the nano-human also had a particle detector, which might help them figure out the composition of the pill. This both intrigued and excited Joya, who quickly tossed the pill into the box. Soon after, the pill suddenly began to vibrate violently, and then the monitor started displaying garbled code. Paula opened the computer connected to the monitor and saw data flooding the screen at a rapid pace. It became clear that, just as Joya had said, the internal structure of the pill was constantly changing. However, this did nothing to excite her, since it was something she had already known for a long time. That night, Joya told Paula about the moment she found the pill bottle. She was only 12 at the time and discovered the bottle in the grass in her backyard. Her name was written on it. Joya looked around, but there was no one in sight yet. She heard a whisper in her ear. It told her that the future could change the world. Because of this, Joya believed she would definitely be able to decipher the pill's ingredients, and Paula also had great faith in her. In the days that followed, the two of them immersed themselves in the laboratory, using various methods to study the pill. Relying on her exceptional memory, Zhu Yeping was able to pick up where they left off in the shortest time possible at the start of each loop. But as they repeatedly overturned their theories and hit bottlenecks again and again, Zhu Ya's patience and passion were gradually running out. What he didn't know was that Paula was actually not Professor Handel's student. On the very day the loop began, she'd just applied to become a lab assistant. After yet another failure, a strong sense of helplessness welled up in Zhu Ya's heart. She told Paula that when she had just graduated, she and her team had participated in a European nuclear research project. There, she met the world's top elite scientists and took the opportunity to study the ingredients of the pill. Unfortunately, she ultimately got nowhere, and it also made Joya realize the gap between herself and the geniuses. Disheartened, she gave up her research and packed all her findings into a box, handing it over to her mother for safekeeping. But this actually gave Paula an idea. Maybe those studies could help, so in the next loop, the two of them went straight to the nursing home where Joya's mother lived. However, even after turning the box upside down, Joya still couldn't find the research report from back then. Instead, she found a news article about her ex-boyfriend Mark. Julia was utterly confused and couldn't understand why her mother would keep such a thing. But seeing her mother already muddled, she knew she wouldn't get any answers. Just then, the caregiver suddenly told Julia that her husband had come looking for her earlier, which made Julia suddenly realize that she hadn't seen her family in a long time. She hurriedly ran out, only to learn that her husband had already left. When she checked her phone, it was full of anxious messages from him. That voice made Julia's heart tremble, and her thoughts involuntarily drifted back to 30 years ago. Back then, her then-boyfriend, upon learning that she was going to Europe and that Mark would be on the team, didn't try to stop her. Instead, he encouraged Julia to go and accomplish what she wanted together with those outstanding people. It was precisely because of this that Julia realized how important he was to her and ultimately chose to spend her life with him. And now, after going through so many cycles, Julia once again realized the importance of her family. She was tired and didn't want to continue anymore. But then Paula suddenly asked, "Have you ever thought about what things would be like around you if you disappeared?" This question caught Julia off guard. She had never considered it before. She guessed that maybe her family would just go on with their lives, or perhaps time would freeze once the cycle ended. There could be countless copies of the same scene, but no matter what, that wasn't the outcome Julia wanted. After returning to the lab once again, she was completely exhausted and insisted that the two of them had already tried every possible combination. Maybe, with the current level of technology, it really was impossible to figure out the ingredients of the pill. Besides, after so many cycles, Juya's longing for her family had only grown stronger now. All she wanted was to be with her husband and daughter. Bala had no memory of what happened before, so she couldn't empathize with Zuya's pain. She simply thought Juya had let down all her efforts and left the lab feeling deeply wronged. This made Juya feel guilty, so she took the initiative to go after her. Paula then told her the real reason she wanted to help. When she was 15, she secretly took her family's car out for a drive. The car tire accidentally ran over a nail, but Paula was too afraid to say anything, thinking her parents would notice, but unfortunately, they didn't. In the end, the tire blew out and her parents died on the spot. This became the pain of her life. She just wanted to figure out the ingredients of the pill, go back to the past, and save her parents. She never expected that Paula had such a painful past. Not wanting to let this poor girl down, she decided to use her last method to look for Mark and see if he still had the research data from back then. At the same time, Zoya also opened up to Paula about her own feelings. A week after her father passed away, she found this bottle of pills and kept trying to use them, but could only return to the day after her father's death. So, in a way, they are the same kind of people, both carrying similar regrets. As they spoke, Zoya started to have a nosebleed again. She realized that this cycle had come to an end. She took the pill and disappeared inside the house, leaving Paula sitting alone on the sofa, at a loss for what to do about everything that had happened. When she opened her eyes again, Zoya escaped from the hospital just as she had before. But this time, instead of looking for Paula, she went straight to Dua's office and found Mark's address in his notebook. Soon, Zoya arrived in the city where Mark lived, her thoughts drifting back to the day they last met. At that time, Zoya had already been married to her husband for 10 years. At a school reunion, she met Mark and took the initiative to bring up the research on the pill, believing it was likely a problem that could never be solved. Mark had never forgotten Zoya, but he also understood that the two of them could never truly be together. The memory ended and Zoya had already arrived at Mark's house. With a heart full of anxiety, she knocked on the door, only to be greeted by Mark's son. Because all of them were data about the pill. Zoya never expected that Mark had spent his whole life helping her search for an answer. He sat on the bench, studying Mark's notes, feeling both joy and bitterness in his heart. Zoya could sense the resentment Mark's son felt toward his father, and could also imagine the tragic circumstances Mark faced at the end. Suddenly, she realized that her obsession with investigating the pill and returning to the past might have been meaningless all along. She was only continuously hurting those around her. In her pain, the black hole in Zoya's chest began to spread. Not daring to delay, she hurriedly swallowed the pill and began a new cycle. This time, Zoya no longer ran away. She held her daughter tightly in her arms, apologized for her previous neglect, and went through the now familiar process of leaving the hospital once again. But this time, Zoya no longer felt annoyed. Instead, she began to enjoy the care from her family, because she now understood that those seemingly dull words actually contained an incredibly precious path to happiness. When passing by Paula's house, a ripple stirred in Zoya's heart. It was time to let go of the past and face the future head-on. When she got home, Zoya tentatively asked her husband, if you could go back to the past, what would you most want to change? But her husband didn't want to change anything because she was afraid of missing out on Zoya, of missing out on this happy life. This answer allowed Zoya to let go of her last obsession. In the days that followed, she and her husband did things they'd experienced countless times before, lying on the beach with their family, playing and laughing with their daughter. She also fulfilled her mother's wish by taking her to see a legendary rhinoceros. During this time, Zoya went to see Paula, explained the situation and gave her yapping and the notebook. Because Zoya understood that Paula, just like her former self, was trapped in guilt over the past. And only by giving her hope could she soothe the pain in her heart. The wheels of time kept moving forward. The influence that Zoya had brought to others gradually faded, except for Paula, who now had a new goal and began researching the pills together with the nanobot. Soon, the final day arrived. As usual, the family celebrated Zoya's birthday in advance, and Zoya pretended not to know anything, showing a joyful smile. The next moment, her daughter suddenly took out a gift. When she opened the box, she found an ultrasound photo of a newborn inside, which meant her daughter was having a baby. her daughter took the opportunity to say that she planned to name her child Zoya. Zoya was overwhelmed with emotion, as this was the best gift she had ever received. Her life was being passed on at this very moment. Suddenly, Zoya realized that she had never experienced anything like this before. Just as the joy in her heart had not yet faded, she suddenly started to have a nosebleed. Zoya realized that her life was coming to an end. She expressed her love to her husband and shared her hopes with her daughter. In the final moment, time stood still as Zoya was swallowed by the black hole. Yet she did not disappear. Instead, she returned to many years ago, watching her younger self pick up a medicine bottle. Zoya gently leaned down and whispered in the ear of the innocent young girl, "You will change the world." The end.